Sure. Good evening. Good evening once again. Man, I'm so relieved. I think that my sound is much better now. Um, we've had a quick change of equipment. Um, Thank you to Julie. I think she had warned me that, okay, the sound is actually choppy. And thank you to anyone else. If you are still watching, I appreciate it a lot, man. Yeah, now that we've hopefully moved past the technical difficulties. Yeah, I was just saying that um, I'm still feeling inspired. Um, Straight out of today's Sunday morning inspiration lecture with Bharat Mardanga Prabhu. He was giving a class on the topic of um, the substance of modern science, and he was pointing out some of the shortcomings and pitfalls that modern science has taken, Um, so, yeah, please do go and check that out if you haven't. If you did watch, please make sure that you watch again. This knowledge, it's ever fresh, and the more you watch, um, it's gonna just keep on giving you a new angle. It definitely does give me a wider perspective if I watch multiple times. But without further ado, let me begin our reading by I'm looking for the right word, by something the invocation. I don't know. There's a right way of describing what you do when you're calling the invocation, rather. So, Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Okay, now that our invocation has been invoked, let us begin with the reading. And I'm still reading the book called Bhakti, the Art of Eternal Love. We're nearing the end of this book, very close to the end. So, yeah, today's topic is the definition of pure devotional service. Okay, interesting. So, the authorized descriptions of bhakti or devotional service, following in the footsteps of previous acharyas, can be summarized in the following statement by Srila Rupa Goswami. First class devotional service is known by one's tendency to be fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, serving the Lord favorably. The purport is that one may also be in Krishna consciousness unfavorably, but that cannot be counted as pure devotional service. I think there was once a Sunday morning inspiration class by USA, which was given by His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami. And the topic was piety and bhakti. Where's the connection? So His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami mentioned that when one reaches the stage whereby he is serving Krishna simply to please him, and there are no material desires or desires of self gain, it is based on pure love, whereby this loving exchange is more about the beloved, and it's about the lust, which is, lust is about me, 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 and the love is about the beloved. So, yeah, just I wanted to make that quick comment that when one reaches the stage of selflessly and being fully engaged in serving Krishna, not for their selfish purposes, then the devotional service becomes pure. So the purport is that one may also be in Krishna consciousness unfavorably, but that cannot be counted as pure devotional service. Pure devotional service should be free from the desire for any material benefit or for sense gratification, as these desires are cultivated through fruitive activities and philosophical speculation. Generally, people are engaged in different activities to get some material profit, whilst most philosophers are engaged in proposing transcendental realization through volumes of word jugglery and speculation. Um, just a quick point that I want to make is that there's this really nice analogy that, explains the position and the situation of the materially conditioned soul, being myself. And this analogy is that of, you can think of yourself, the soul. You can think of a scene where there's two birds sitting on the same branch in a tree, and one bird is just sitting, watching, observing, um, and that bird is analogous to the Paramatma, or the incarnation of Krishna who sits within the heart. And then seated right next to that bird who's watching is another bird which is eating fruit. His main business is to just enjoy fruit, just eat this fruit from this tree. And this analogy is compared to, it explains the orientation or positioning of the conditioned soul in this material world, whereby my main, basically, I'm imprisoned in the body in such a way that I'm unable to do anything else but to enjoy the fruits, or enjoy or suffer the fruits of the fruitive activities of um, the activities, as a result of the activities that are engaged by the body. So I'm not sure if that makes sense. Let me get back to the reading. So pure devotional service must always be free from such fruitive activities and philosophical speculation. One has to learn Krishna consciousness or pure devotional service from the authorities by spontaneous loving service. Okay, um, was quite a short chapter. Moving on to the next chapter, um, which is titled Acting for Krishna, the Essence of Bhakti. So, this devotional service is a sort of cultivation. It is not simply in action for people who like to be inactive or devotee or devote their time to silent meditation. Wow. Let me read that again. This devotional service is a sort of cultivation. It is not simply in action for people who like to be inactive or devote their time to silent meditation. There are many different methods for people who want this, but cultivation of Krishna consciousness is different. The particular word used by Srila Rupa Goswami is in this connection is anis anusilana, or cultivation by following the predecessor teachers or acharyas. One quick note that I want to make here is that in the Bhagavad Gita, especially chapter 3, Krishna instructs Arjuna to fight, to perform his prescribed duty. And Arjuna, at that point in the book, or in, the whole um, conversation, he wanted to use Krishna consciousness as an excuse to be inactive, and had sort of an idea that Krishna consciousness is something that he can just go and practice in the forest somewhere. But we are given, especially as the verses go by in the Bhagavad Gita, and as well as in chapter 4, some points, we're given a clear um, instruction by Prabhupada, His Divine Grace Prabhupada in the purports, as well as Krishna himself, when he speaks the Gita, that one should learn to use material energy for Krishna. One should learn to act, but in that action, he should dovetail all of the works that he performs using material energy for Krishna. And that is the right way to do it, because you're using Krishna's energy for Krishna, and you're thus engaging all of your senses in the service of Krishna, which then, just like His Divine Grace Prabhupada explains it, he says, just like sexual desire, it naturally develops in a young man when, a young boy turns 13 or 14. Similarly, the love for God will spontaneously and naturally develop on its own as one learns more and more to use material energy for Krishna's pleasure. Um, yeah, back to the reading. So the word used by Srila Rupa Goswami in this connection is anusilana, or cultivation by following the predecessor teachers, acharyas. As soon as we say cultivation, we must refer to activity without activity. Oh, as soon as we say cultivation, we must refer to activity. Without activity, consciousness alone cannot help us. Mm. All activities may be divided into two classes. One class may be for achieving a certain goal, and the other may be for avoiding some unfavorable circumstance. In Sanskrit, these activities are called pravritti and nivritti, positive and negative action. There are many examples of negative action. For instance, a diseased person has to be cautious and take medicine in order to avoid making his illness worse. Wow. Just really nice description of um, how to classify actions. So, continuing with the reading, those who are cultivating spiritual life and executing devotional service are always engaged in activity. Such activity can be performed with the body or with the mind. Thinking, feeling, and willing are all activities of the mind. And when we will to do something, the activity comes to be manifest by the gross bodily senses. Mm. Thus, in our mental activities, we should always try to think of Krishna and try to plan how to please him, following in the footsteps of the great acharyas and the personal spiritual master. The activities of the body, activities of the mind, and activities of speech. A Krishna conscious person engages his words in preaching the glories of the Lord. This is called kirtana. And by his mind, a Krishna conscious person always thinks of the activities of the Lord as he is speaking on the battlefield of Kurukshetra or engaging in his various pastimes in Vrindavana with his devotees. In this way, one can always think of the activities and pastimes of the Lord. This is the mental culture of Krishna consciousness. Mm. Um, Very, very nice points mentioned that um, thinking, I'll just read again the first line, which is saying, those who are cultivating spiritual life and executing devotional service are always engaged in activity. Such activity can be performed with the body or with the mind. Thinking, feeling, and willing are all activities of the mind. And when we will to do something, the activity comes to be manifest by the gross bodily senses. I really love that line. So, continuing with the next paragraph. Similarly, we can offer many services with our bodily activities, but all such activities must be in relationship with Krishna. This relationship is established by connecting oneself with the bona fide spiritual master, who is the direct representative of Krishna in disciplic succession. Therefore, the execution of Krishna conscious activities with the body should be directed by the spiritual master and then performed with faith. Faith is the beginning, the foundation of everything, man. Um, so, yeah, continuing with the reading. The connection between Krishna and a person cultivating Krishna consciousness is established. Without initiation by a bona fide spiritual master, the actual connection with Krishna consciousness is never performed. So that paragraph is just touching on the importance of following the footsteps, and whenever you have a question, the spiritual master is the representative of God and is the manifestation of God, in fact, who can directly respond to your question, because we've all felt, especially before, um, personally, before coming into Krishna consciousness, I felt the frustration of, you know, saying, God, why don't you respond? Why do you never respond? There are so many songs like that. One friend was just playing me a song earlier by NF and another one by Dax, and really they were touching on these same, you know, sentiments that, God, why do you never respond? And for me, that is the beauty of Krishna consciousness, that, you come into this movement and it becomes very clear that the the guru, in fact, the word guru is just not a singular word, it's plural, meaning anyone who guides you within the journey. And it does feel like the guidance that I'm getting, it feels like now God, Krishna, is guiding me from within as well as without, and I'm able to ask any question that I have, and I'm able to receive, most importantly, guidance on directly on how to go about things. So yeah, that is one of the benefits that I've felt, coming into Krishna consciousness. That is one of the things that I've gotten, received, which I haven't seen anywhere else, I'd say. And I'm really grateful for that, and also for the people who've guided me throughout my journey, you know. So, back to the reading, please. So, the cultivation of Krishna consciousness is not material. The Lord has three general energies, namely the external energy, the internal energy, and the marginal energy. The living entities are called marginal energy, and the material cosmic manifestation is the action of the external or material energy. Then there's the spiritual world, which is a manifestation of the internal energy. The living entities, who are called marginal energy, perform material activities. So the living entities, who are called marginal energy, perform material activities when acting under the inferior external energy. And when they engaged in activities under the internal spiritual energy, their activities are called Krishna conscious. Wow. Um, so there's basically Mahamaya as well as Yoga Maya, and the marginal living entities, meaning us who are the spiritual energy of Krishna, but who are performing material activities, um, being led by Mahamaya. Um, so when one does perform spiritual activities, then they are called Krishna conscious. So I take it that it is very, very important and crucial to understand exactly what is the difference between a spiritual activity and a material activity. Because especially in the beginning, for someone who wants to practice spiritual life, it's hard to distinguish. You hear the song, it kind of sounds like, it's more or less the same as other songs. But when you are guided again by the spiritual master, and you are told over and over again to practice and focus on the sound, you start to realize, or even you just developing that faith and understanding that, okay, let me start to categorize everything, in my life, everything that I have access to. I have perhaps this cell phone. Is this material or spiritual? So same thing with books like the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita, or His Divine Grace Prabhupada's writings. When you are told by the spiritual master that, okay, this is actually a spiritual, you know, material or a spiritual object, you have to just translate that instantly in your mind as to being this, by this thing being spiritual, being a spiritual item, me simply making contact with it, it's gonna guarantee happiness for me. you know it's gonna provide me with instant shelter. And I've I guess that has been one thing that has helped me a lot, on days where I've felt extremely depressed. I've felt extremely frustrated by Maya. We're all having such a tough struggle against the material energy of the Lord, that there are times where I know that the only thing that I can do is just put on earphones and make contact with that spiritual energy through listening to kirtan, through um, making contact with the Maha Mantra, or maybe even listening to an audiobook of one of His Divine Grace Prabhupada's books. And that has instantly provided me with shelter on so many occasions, just from that knowledge of being, trying to discern what is spiritual and what is material. And it is hard to do that without that faith initially, that, okay, when the spiritual master or any senior devotee is saying that this book is a spiritual item, it's not the same as material items. For me, even though it looks the same as other books, it has a cover and it is made of pages and paper. But just because of the words that are arranged, these are the same words which are used in all other contexts of material, um, in the material world. But by these words, same words being spoken by Krishna, being arranged to propagate transcendental knowledge, they carry that spiritual um, weight within them. And that is more than enough to qualify one as performing a Krishna consciousness, or rather performing a Krishna conscious activity through making contact with these books, these words, through Krishna's devotees, as well as chanting of the Maha Mantra. Um, yeah, may we please get back to the reading. So then there's the spiritual world, which is a manifestation of the internal energy. The living entities, who are called marginal energy, perform material activities when acting under the inferior external energy. And when they engage in activities under the internal spiritual energy, their activities are called Krishna conscious. This means that those who are great souls or great devotees do not act under the spell of material energy, but act instead under the protection of the spiritual energy. Any activities done in devotional service or in Krishna consciousness are directly under the control of the spiritual energy. In other words, energy is a sort of strength. Mm. And this strength can be spiritualized by the mercy of both the bona fide spiritual master and Krishna. Wow, perfect closing. Oh, that's not the closing, but just a quick side note is that even though it's the external material energy of the Lord, it is very, very strong. It is very, 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 very strong, and it can crush me just like that. So that strength, it needs to be converted and spiritualized, um, and that is enough to liberate one from the bondage of material existence. Yeah, I just wanted to make that quick point. So, on to the last paragraph. Just before we get to the last paragraph, let me read again the last line, which says, any activities done in devotional service or Krishna consciousness are directly under the control of the spiritual energy. In other words, energy is a sort of strength, and this strength can be spiritualized by the mercy of both the bona fide spiritual master and Krishna. So, last paragraph. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, Lord Chaitanya states that it is a fortunate person who comes in contact with a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. To one who is serious about spiritual life, Krishna gives the intelligence to come in contact with a bona fide spiritual master. And then, by the grace of the spiritual master, one becomes advanced in Krishna consciousness. Hmm. In this way, the whole jurisdiction of Krishna consciousness is directly under the spiritual energy, Krishna and the spiritual master. Wow, man. Um, Krishna, I've heard somewhere that the main reason that Krishna, he sits in the heart of every living being, just observing, just like how I was saying, being the bird who's just watching you eat the fruits. The main reason is so that he can enjoy purifying the soul. When the conditioned entity, living entity, becomes ready to take spiritual life seriously, sits there in the heart so that he can cleanse, can give the intelligence by which um, we can come back to him, back home, back to Godhead. I think I saw a quick comment from at Musa 108, but it was through StreamYard. So perhaps if at Musa 108 can type their comment again, and it's going to show up in a second, I'm assuming. And whilst we're waiting for that, just please make sure you join us again tomorrow. I'm not sure how, I think there's 2 or 3 chapters left of this book, Bhakti, the Essence. So please join Kolufelo Prabhu tomorrow, 7 p.m. He's going to be doing almost tying together. And then Nomsa Winkosi on Tuesday. On Wednesday, it's Itumeling. Thursdays, it's the Books Are the Basis Book Club. Books Are the Basis Book Club. And all the drama, all the action is there, man. All the highs and lows, as well as the strong rasas that the residents of Vrindavana are feeling for Krishna and towards the Supreme Soul, are all just nicely condensed in this one book called Krishna. the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we're doing that on Thursday. Xavier Sachita says that's an amazing personal share. Thank you so much, bro. Thank you for the service opportunities you've been giving us. So, around God answering questions, thanks for highlighting the invaluable need for Guru. Thank you again, Xavier Sachi Prabhu. Um, yeah, catch Xavier Sachi on Ask a Monk on Saturday, um, as well as you can. I think when you message or take the contact details of Ed Wusa 108 or the contact numbers, which are written on the Ed Wusa 108 page on Facebook as well as Instagram and YouTube, you are directly contacting Xavier Sachi Das, and please join us. Um, there's also Harinam on Saturdays afternoons, um, and then we do it all over again from Sunday. And yeah, man, what can I say? Out of words. At Wusa 108, we have a comment saying, I enjoyed the story of Enif and Dex asking God to answer. Man, literally, like when I heard those songs, the only thing that I felt was literally every line um in those two songs that I heard, from these two artists, every line that I heard, it made me like these are the questions that I had exactly. There's this song about the book of Revelations and how it poses certain questions, and one of the questions is what if hell is on earth? What if this earth that we live in is actually the hell? And I'm so grateful for getting the answers to those exact questions, uh, and that is through Bhakti, and that is through reading Prabhupada's books. And Prabhupada is directly addressing the questions that are being asked in these songs, man. And it is very, very important that for anyone who has questions, why am I doing here? Why this existence? Why is there no happiness really in life? Um, just all the answers are there. All the answers are in the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, as well as the Nectar of Devotion. Um, and this book that we're currently reading is the introduction to the Nectar of Devotion. So I'm more than grateful, man, for just receiving all the answers, basically, all the answers to all these questions. Um, yeah, catch at Wusa 108 on Facebook, at Wusa 108 on Instagram, as well as YouTube. Like, subscribe, share, and follow. I don't have any more words except for thank you for joining and thank you for watching and tolerating up until now. I really appreciate you as well as your existence. But from me, I'll have to love you and leave you until the next time. I say good night as well as God bless. Thank you so much.